If you've inherited a house in Minnesota, but you live in another state, you've got a problem most people don't talk about. You're trying to handle a property and probably a probate from hundreds or thousands of miles away while you're grieving and while you can't just drive over to deal with it. Here's the good news. You can do almost all of this remotely without moving here and without flying back and forth every other week. In this video, I'm going to give you the exact plan step by step to handle an inherited Minnesota home from out of state. My name is Arne Johansson. I'm a realtor here in Minneapolis, and here's why this is my wheelhouse. I've run short-term and long-term rental properties for years, and I manage Minnesota real estate for people who don't live here. So being your eyes and hands on the ground is literally what I do. I'm not an attorney and I'm not a CPA, so this is just general advice. It's not legal or tax advice. But if you're out of state and you're staring at an inherited house, book a free call with the Calendly link in the description, and I'll help you figure out your plan. No pressure at all. So let's get into it. So the first step is kind of urgent, so you're going to want to do this pretty quickly, and it's the thing that you cannot afford to sit on when you're far away. You want to protect a house. An empty house in Minnesota that nobody is watching is really a ticking clock that's going to cause a lot of problems, because once it starts to get cold out, there can be a lot of problems on the property. So the very first call you want to make is to your homeowner's insurance company. Tell them that the owner passed away and that the house is now vacant, and ask how long the coverage lasts and when you need a vacant home policy. Because if the house is sitting empty and something happens to it, like a pipe burst, a break-in, and they were never told, they can absolutely deny the claim fully. So you definitely want to make a call to your insurance company. Second, you want to keep the utilities on, and especially if it's winter, you want to keep it heated. You might want to think about getting the pipes winterized, so when you're thousands of miles away, you don't have to worry about a pipe breaking and causing thousands of dollars in damages. And then the third thing is you're going to want to get somebody who you can trust to just keep an eye out on the property, like a neighbor or somebody who you can trust, or somebody like me who can just stop over to the property once a week to just check on it. And so this is exactly what I do every day with properties I manage, and a house that nobody's watching is a really big risk for you. So that's one easy step you can take to just lower your risk. All right, so step two, since you can't be here, your local team becomes your presence on the ground. So there are three people you're going to want to have in this probate process. First is a Minnesota probate attorney. That's non-negotiable because they handle the court process, so you don't have to fly in for it. Second is a CPA, because there are tax angles that I'll get into later that you're probably going to want to follow. And then third is a local real estate agent who has actually handled probate sales and out-of-state sellers, because coordinating everything from a distance is a specific skill. So think of it this way: when you're out of state, you're not managing the house, you're managing your team. And a good team means you can handle this whole thing from your kitchen table from another state. So get these three people lined up early, ideally before you're even formally in charge of the estate, so you're ready when you can move. All right, so the third step is, and this is a question that I get a lot from a lot of out-of-state heirs: can I even be the person in charge if I don't live in Minnesota? And the answer to that question is generally yes. Minnesota allows someone who lives in another state to serve as a personal representative. That's the executor, they're called. It's the person that's the court has put in charge legally to handle the state. You do not have to move here to be that person, but you're going to want to get these people in place that we talked about so everything runs smooth. Now, there can be some specifics depending on the situation. Your attorney may have you appoint a local agent to receive your court papers or address a bond, which is exactly why step two matters. But the big fear that you don't have to uproot your life or camp out in Minnesota for a year, it's just not true. You don't have to worry about that. And here's the other relief. A lot of probate here in Minnesota is informal, meaning it's handled through a court register with no in-person hearing at all. So your attorney files the paperwork. You often never even see the inside of a courtroom. So most of the probate is done informally. All right, so step 4, and this is the one that makes the whole thing actually workable, is that you can sign remotely in Minnesota. It has legal remote online notarization. So documents that need to be notarized can be done over a secure video call from your living room in another state. So that's not going to be a problem. Between doing that, electronic signatures, overnight mail, and in some cases a power of attorney, you can execute almost everything this process requires without ever getting on a plane. So I've had out-of-state sellers close on a house in Minnesota without even stepping foot in the state. Everything was signed remotely. Proceeds were wired to their account, and we were able to handle the whole thing. So when you picture handling this, don't picture repeated cross-country flights. Picture a series of video calls and e-signatures with your local team doing the in-person part. So that's the reality, and it's a lot more manageable than most people fear, actually. So step number 5, the house is going to have a lot of belongings. Oftentimes, it's usually like a lifetime of belongings, and you're not here to sort through everything. And this is one of the heaviest parts emotionally and logistically part of the probate process. So let me make it practical for you. You've got options that don't require you to fly in and box everything up yourself. You can do estate sales with estate sale companies. They can come in, price everything out, and sell the contents. Clean out and junk removal services can clear out what's left. Your local agent or property manager can meet them and let them in and oversee it. And that's often exactly what I do. I help just get everything out of the house, get it all cleaned up for pictures so you can sell the home for the highest amount possible. Now, a lot of people do want to come in and do a walkthrough and take the personal sentimental things and photos and keepsakes, and I think that's really healthy if you can. But the full exhausting clean out, that can absolutely be handled by local pros while you're back home. You don't have to carry that all alone or in person. So step number 6 is deciding what to actually do with the property. If you're going to sell it, if you're going to rent it, if you're going to keep it as a second home. And I just want to be honest about how being out of state changes the math on this. Renting it can sound appealing until you realize that being a long distance landlord, dealing with tenants, repairs, and midnight calls about the furnace is really difficult from another state. I run rental properties, and I'll tell you straight up, remote landlording is definitely a real job, and it's not for everyone. So keeping it as a second home rarely pencils out, and when you factor in the carrying costs, it's mostly just better to sell the property. So for most out-of-state heirs, selling ends up being the cleanest path. And here's another tax point to bring to your CPA. When you inherit the house, the home's value steps up to what it was worth on the date of death. So if you sell soon after, your taxable gain is often very small. So right now in Minneapolis, the median home value is about $365,000. So this can be a significant asset, and getting that date of death value documented protects you. I've got a whole separate video on the sell, rent, or keep decision, and I'll point you to it. So step number 7 is, let's say you do decide to sell. Here's how it actually goes when you're not here, because this is where a local agent can really earn their commission and earn their worth. I handle everything on the ground. I get the house ready, coordinate any repairs or cleanouts, handle the photos and the listings and the negotiations and the showings, access to the buyers and the inspectors. You review the offers by phone and email, and then we talk over the phone. When it's time to sign, you do it remotely with the online notarization that we talked about. And then so at closing, you'll get the proceeds wired to your account wherever you are. So that is where a good local agent can really come in to help you out, because there's going to be a lot of things that need to happen with the sale of the house, and there's going to be a lot of coordination. And like with me, because of my construction background, if the house needs work to sell, I can manage those repairs for you remotely and tell you exactly what's worth doing and what's not worth doing. So So you're not paying for the wrong thing. It's just like you're only paying what you absolutely need to do to get it ready to sell. So from your end, selling a house in Minnesota from another state can absolutely happen, and you can be hands off. You just have to be able to manage these things from afar. So last step is step number 8. 2 things to stay on top of. First, you're going to want to stay on top of the clock every month that the house sits. Carrying costs are on. You have the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the utilities, the upkeep. And from out of state, it's easy to let it drift because it's out of sight, but that drift costs real money, and usually it's good to just get the house sold as soon as you can. And second, if there are multiple heirs, there usually are, often that are scattered across different states, get everyone aligned early. Nothing stalls an out-of-state sale like siblings in 3 time zones who aren't on the same page. Pick your point person, lean on your attorney and agent to keep it neutral, and communicate. Handle those 2 things, and this will be way more manageable. So that's your plan for handling an inherited house in Minnesota from out of state. Protect the property, build your local team, get appointed from wherever you are, sign everything remotely, handle the clean out through local pros, make the sell, rent, or keep call, and keep the momentum going. And honestly, this is exactly what I do for out of state families. I'm the person on the ground here in Minnesota, so you don't have to be. So if you're dealing with this right now, book a free call with me with the Calendly link in the description, and I'll help you build your specific plan, no pressure or obligation. If you haven't seen them, watch my videos on what happens to a house when someone dies in Minnesota and whether you can sell a house in probate. They're all in my inherited and probate properties playlist, which walks you through the whole journey. And subscribe if this helps. I make calm, practical guides for exactly these situations. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.